afternoon, everybody. And today we have another great show because today Zakalu and I have brought you Sharon Daphna. And she is so interesting because she is all about the chemtrails and the Orgonite. And today's show, really, we didn't bring her on to scare everybody. We just think knowledge is good because this is how you can turn around and take this planet back. And she has a lot of information on how to do this and what is the latest and greatest as far as the chemtrails and all the new things that everyone is learning about the chemtrails and the Orgonite. And I'm sure she'll probably get into William Reich, which is the same as for Tesla. These two guys have really had a bad rap. So stay tuned with us, and this is just going to be a whole lot of fun and a lot of information for you guys, something that you guys really need to listen to. So we can get rid of this fear programming that a lot of people are doing with the chemtrails, and so Sharon agrees with me. So welcome, Sharon. And we are so happy to have you all the way from California. So us Colorado people love the Californians. So,
well, I love Colorado.
Well, you can come and visit any time. I
did visit a couple years ago, and I dropped a few tower busters around Boulder.
Ooh, okay. Well, we're going to talk about those too. Yeah, the differences between the Orgonite and so why don't you start out like you would in a normal interview and give us a little bit about yourself, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right. Well, I started out as an artist and a musician, and that was most of my life. And I didn't really think much about politics. There was periods of time where I thought about that kind of stuff, but I've always thought about the environment. So that's always been very important to me, is nature and the world we live in and keeping a clean world. So the way that I got into Orgonite and the way I discovered the chemtrails was through realizing how sick we were all getting, including myself, from this deliberate pollution. There was so much more to pollution than what I realized. I was trained on global warming and all of that stuff growing up in the 90s, and I did understand there were a lot of problems in the world. Now I don't think global warming is what they were telling us it was, and I think a lot of people are starting to see that it's not what we thought. However, the environment has been in trouble for a long, long time, and it's due to human activity, but it's also due to which we will get into as I show you some of my slides and some of my photos of some of the other types of craft out there that are doing the chemtrailing. It's not all human, I assure you. But I did get into this issue through discovering my own health problems were related to it. So the environment's always been important to me. And in the last few years, I've gained a new understanding of really what we're dealing with when it comes to environmental pollution, that so much of it has been done to us. And although humans need to take responsibility, there's monumental programs being done to terraform the earth and change the atmosphere, change the soil, change the water, and change us. So now that I know that stuff, I've become much more involved in undoing it all. And the way to undo it is with Orgone energy, free energy, as well as, of course, taking responsibility for cleaning up our own communities and stopping our own pollution.
Beautiful. That's something I found that real interesting. You mentioned non-human. That was one of my first questions I wanted to ask you about.
Oh, cool.
So the chemtrailing, I think, do you find a lot of people are somewhat aware of that phenomenon?
I think a lot of people actually are aware of chemtrails, and this is something that has come up more in the last few years, where now if you say the word, they don't look at you like you're crazy anymore. Like, those love stamps? I think I have these little, let's see if I grab them here. Postal Service put out these little stamps. Can you see that? It says love, and it has a chemtrail on it. When I was at the post office, I wanted to specifically get this stamp because I love this stamp. And, and Gabriel, my husband, and I actually just got married in October, and I thought, I think this stamp is like for our wedding. So anyway, when I asked for the stamp, I asked for the chemtrail stamp that says love. And the lady did not laugh at me or anything. She just got the stamp. So maybe the word chemtrail is now in the vernacular. But the thing is with chemtrails is there's so much fear involved in that I used to feel too. And I think we're overreacting, actually. Now, that might sound strange from somebody who has spent years working on combating chemtrails, but we are definitely overreacting. And when we get into the ET element, which it's cool that you asked that right away, because that's a lot of what's going on here is there is an interplanetary war going on, and the more that you look into what's going on in the sky in the way I have and actually zoom in on the crafts doing it, you start to see some oddities and anomalies, and you know these aren't regular planes like we thought. So anyway, I think chemtrails are something people know about, but they view it as air pollution primarily, and they also view it as something that airliners are doing, military is doing, and there's a lot more understanding that there's toxins in it than there used to be, that we do have to think about that. But what there's a lack of understanding of is the energetics involved in it, and how by understanding that we can actually negate the whole chemtrail program altogether. So that's, I know it's a lot all at once, but chemtrails definitely something people know about now. What to do about them, very few people know. So that's why I'm here.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, I think that humans have a symbiotic connection to Gaia. And, you know, so yes, we hear about the chemtrails, and we shouldn't be so fearful, because I think it's kind of waking us up to coming back to the connection with Gaia and talking with her, and and how we view the chemtrails. And I think we can get her involved by turning this around, just by us reawakening to Gaia as a living being. Because don't you think the chemtrails could be hurting her at the same time?
Oh, definitely, but she is involved, and the Earth naturally cleans up chemtrail pollution. And the reason, see, I'm going to explain the connection between EMF and chemtrails, because it's important for people to know that the chemtrails are not existing in a vacuum. They're not just spraying metals up there for no reason. That's working with deadly energies that they use. But the Earth has a life-giving energy of Orgone energy, which we also have. That is the life force energy that Wilhelm Reich discovered. And this energy is natural to the planet. So the Earth will naturally clean up chemtrail pollution through this energy field. So she is involved, but because of the EMF problem, such as cell phone towers throughout our cities, countryside, and on mountaintops, those natural energy centers have been compromised. So what we do with Orgonite is we'll gift those towers, we'll distribute it specifically to the towers to neutralize the deadly EMF of the tower. And then not only is the Orgonite producing the Orgone energy that cleans the atmosphere, but it's also negating a deadly energy source that was negating the Earth's natural energy. So it's like you just take it back to the beginning again, and you're removing the source of energy that's causing the chemtrails to stick.
Okay. Well, you show us your cool, you had an Orgonite, show and tell.
A few.
Show us. Yes.
Okay. So this is the most basic Orgonite. It's called a tower buster, and it contains metal shavings. We use aluminum, and they have to be very fine. It contains quartz crystals, a copper coil, and we also include selenite, which is a mineral that helps to keep it energetically clear. It's not necessary. All you need is quartz and metal shavings. You don't even need the copper coil, but we use it because it increases the electromomentum, which is something I learned from Dwayne Gardner, who is known as Orgonite Austin on YouTube. He wrote a book called The Science of Rain, and he talks about using the copper coil to increase the electromomentum of the piece. So copper will also repel negative ions, which are air cleaning. Now, when you put all of these materials together in a catalyzing resin, the resin compresses on the quartz crystal, and that activates its piezoelectric properties. So the quartz is already a generator of orgone energy in itself, which is why people feel better when they have crystals around, they wear crystals or keep them in their homes. When we put it in here and the catalyzing resin compresses around it, it makes it even more powerful. And likewise, it's compressing around these fine metal particles. So with all of that surface area being compressed upon on these crystalline structures, it's releasing increased orgone energy much more than the crystal would do on its own. And it creates a scalar wave vortex, which knocks pollution out of the sky, away from Earth and into space. And I have some pictures of that I can show you guys, of the actual funneling motion that you can see in the clouds. It looks like a funnel, and I used to look at it and wonder, is it coming down? And over time of observing it and photographing it for years, I've seen a definitive upward movement. So we know, as the electrical engineer Ken Rolla has explained, that it moves the pollution away from the Earth through this scalar energy wave. And at the same time, the orgone energy of the Orgonite restructures EMF, the electromagnetic fields that are emitted by wireless devices, cell phones, cell phone towers, smart meters. It restructures it so it's less harmful. It's still there, but it passes through us much quieter. So that's how that works. And when we put them in the environment, we specifically target high EMF areas, like around cell phone towers. And we've seen unbelievable results. I've documented for years on my website and blog.
Yeah, well, go ahead and bring up some of your pictures.
Okay.
And you know, you're talking about scalar waves, and I think it's the new term that we use. I think William Reich associated that with God conscious. You know, the Reiki.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the Reiki people use the God conscious energy, the prana, the chi, the ki.
Yes, and scalar energy is just the modern term for orgone, and I learned this from Ken Rolla. And let me pick up the picture here. I'm just going to look through my photos here. Okay, so I think I have to share my screen with you.
Yes, you have to hit screen share first. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
So this picture here, do you see this funneling, spiraling cloud?
Yes.
This was right over my house in Hollywood, and I lived in LA until just under 2 years ago. I moved up here to the mountains, but we were doing a lot of orgone energy work in LA. And in fact, Los Angeles is thoroughly gifted throughout the city. And I mean, we tackled the cell towers there left and right, and we still go and, you know, get a few others that we missed, which we're going to be doing in the next few days. But this spiraling cloud, you see, I saw this coming home. I was about a mile from my house, and that was right over where I live. And what you're seeing is the orgone energy, or scalar energy wave, is spiraling in nature. Wilhelm Reich discovered this a long time ago. Let's see, I can make it a little bigger so you can see it better. He discovered this, that orgone energy was a spiral. So this is how we know the Orgonite is working, because on all this chemtrail stuff in the sky, you see how the Orgonite is creating this wave that is just spiraling it up and away. So that's my most clear example that I have at the ready here. I've got, let's see, I've got another one with several. Find it in here.
Hey, do you guys ever follow up with your gifting to see if they take them away?
Oh, no, you know, we couldn't find them again if we wanted to. We throw them usually out of the car, and we put them in bushes. We don't even know where they are. So
I was just curious.
We have followed up by, yeah, because people worry, oh, they're going to take them. But we've put out 5,000 of them approximately, and we haven't had a problem with that, because when we revisit the places we've gifted, we see the results. We can see that it is gifted. We can tell by the sky, and we can tell by the atmosphere and by the people and how they behave. We've seen dramatic improvements, both in just the feel of an area, like people become friendlier, more laid back. Like, you wouldn't believe the differences, like in Bakersfield and Palmdale, for example, how different it is when you come back after gifting. So here's another one. Can you guys see this one of the spiraling? Okay. Yes. So this is just an example of the spiraling motion of the energy, and you'll see often spiral-shaped clouds.
That was neat.
Looks like a little angel flying at the top there.
They do look like angels, and some people think they are. And Well, scientifically they're not, but they do look like them. So that's one thing, though, that's tough when you're working with this energy, which is so spiritual, to be able to reconcile the spiritual and the scientific. So Orgone energy and Orgonite has been very mystified, which is the reason that Ken Rolla chooses to say scalar energy instead of orgone. But Wilhelm Reich called it orgone, and that's what I call it. But the problem is, so many people think that when you put out Orgonite, that mystical beings come and eat up the aerosol pollution. And I'm not saying that there's not all kinds of beings out there we can't see, but there's a science to what's going on in the sky. And I really prefer to explain it in a scientific way so that more people would understand and be inclined to work with it. Because once you start working with Orgone energy and understand the science, the spiritual aspects make themselves abundantly clear. So I always give a scientific explanation. Then when people start working with it, they say, I get it. This is the life force. This is chi. I can see how it's natural to me, how it's natural to the earth. And we are multidimensional and able to deal on these higher planes of existence and clean up our world.
Now, the lenticular clouds, a lot of, I'm at the base of the 14ers, the 14,000 high mountains here in Salida, and a lot of times I will see these lenticular, and they look like spaceships, the round, and a lot of them will just sit at the top of the mountains. And even if it's a really, really windy day and there's no other clouds out there, it's like this, I even have a picture, it's like this huge lenticular cloud. Now, is that scalar coming out of the mountain?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's absolutely what it is. When I was in Colorado, I saw a lot of them too. And I saw them in Mount Shasta. I've seen them all over. Everywhere we've gone, I've seen them over mountains. But the amazing thing is, when you're using Orgonite, they can appear over flatlands. I actually have a picture of that too. Do you want to see it?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So let's pull that up. So, do you see the lenticular clouds?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The interesting thing about these particular ones is they appeared over our house in Hollywood after 1 week of working with Orgonite in April of 2014. And this was over the flatlands, no mountains around. And it was remarkable because our street was literally behaving as the mountain ridge. And that's why you're seeing them over mountains, is because the mountain, with its pyramid shape and with its composition of minerals, is putting out that scalar energy or orgone energy. So you'll see lenticular clouds forming over mountains typically in nature. And when you have just distributed Orgonite to a new area, you'll even see them over flatlands. I have many, many examples of that too on my website and on my blog. Like we were in Nevada, and we were near Carson City. We saw lenticular clouds over the desert because we had distributed so much Orgonite along the highway. We were traveling en route from LA to Reno, and we decided to go a way we hadn't gone before and distribute Orgonite the whole way. And by the end of the day, we saw clouds just like that. And I get that again and again and again.
Okay. Go ahead.
What, you showed the angel clouds. Is that what's also sometimes called glyphs?
You know what they call them? I don't like to talk about this, but they call them Sylphs. But that bothers me because that doesn't really describe what's going on energetically in the atmosphere. When you can see the chemtrail pollution literally turn into that. So, if you're observing it with the scientific eye, you could see it happening. Now, people get mad at me about this sometimes because I say, it's not Sylphs, it's a scalar wave vortex you're seeing. I can't verify whether this type of being exists or not. I don't have any experience with them. My experience is the same type of cloud forms again and again, but I watch them happen time-lapse. And I photograph them time-lapse, and I could see that it's not an angel, but it is actually the clouds changing shape. But I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying I have no experience with them. I do have experience with extra-dimensional entities and really some bad dudes but not so much these nice guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, wasn't it Wilhelm Reich, I think I heard you say, when he would study the clouds, the chemtrails, and then he would study the clouds, and then he would see the ETs in there?
Mm-hmm.
And those are
Yes.
the bad guys.
They are the bad guys, and I deal with them every day. And what he found was a connection between the terraforming of our Earth, the desertification of the Earth, and these extra-dimensional entities. And I could say entity because they're not life as we know it. They're not life at all. They're an artificial intelligence, and they just exist just to destroy. And whatever the reason is, I don't know. What I do know is that they benefit off of our suffering. They do somehow feed off of our negative energy and the Earth's negative energy. And so they create an environment of suffering. And Wilhelm Reich definitely noticed this. He felt it. He chronicled it in Contact with Space and his core volumes during the 1950s, during the work in the deserts of Arizona. And what he found was, upon looking at the sky for hours and hours like I do, on the heavy DOR days, when he was working with his cloudbuster to remove the deadly energy and restore natural weather, he would see crafts, orbs. And when he aimed the cloudbuster at those crafts, they would retreat. It was his view that those crafts were working with the natural orgone streams of the atmosphere in order to locomote around the Earth and through space. And he was interfering with the orgone of the atmosphere, and that would cause them to retreat. However, I've also noticed in my own work that there is a retreat of these types of crafts and entities in the face of orgone, because to them it's deadly. To us it's life, but they are inverted, and to them it's death. So they live on DOR. They want smog, they want air pollution, they want EMF, they want dry desert planet, whereas for us it's the opposite. So there's a huge connection. I've got tons of pictures of strange crafts as well, and I do believe I've encountered the good guys as well, because when I work with orgone energy, and let's say Gabriel and I are making a huge batch of Orgonite like we did yesterday, or we're working with our chembuster on the atmosphere or doing ceremony to clean it, we have seen the orbs come and hover over us while we work. So I don't know who they are. They don't introduce themselves, and I don't know if they can introduce themselves. Perhaps I wouldn't be able to recognize them in my 3D form. Maybe they're higher dimensional. But I got one just yesterday, a very peculiar orb that just hovered over the house for several minutes, and I kept taking pictures of it, and it let me. And then
you got pictures?
I do. And actually, I can show you some. I've got more on my blog. Let me pull up a couple. I have this folder. Let's see, pictures. And, okay, here it is. Okay, I don't know how well you can see it. I'll try to make it big. But there's a white orb with a stream coming from it.
Yes, down at the bottom.
Light. And it kept changing directions. I just have a couple of them here for you guys. But if you go to my blog, thekembo.tumblr.com, I have a few more. And it just kept rotating. And I could see this energy stream behind it. What it is, I don't know. But it stood there for a long time. And I get these pretty often. There are some that are attracted by the orgone, and there are some that are repelled. And what Wilhelm Reich found was that the ones he was seeing were repelled by the orgone energy. And he started calling his cloudbuster a space gun and using it as a weapon against them. And I think this is around when people started to really think he was odd. This is also around the time when he reported it to the Air Force, and then they put him away and killed him in jail and destroyed his lab and his books. So they didn't want people to know about this stuff.
No. Do you think those bad guys are Archons?
I don't call them that. I have a friend who calls them asscorns, which I prefer.
Okay. Darkons. And
I don't call them that because that word means ruler.
Yes.
And I learned this from Cameron Day, that if you call them that, you're dignifying them as rulers, which they're not. So that might be what they call themselves, but they are some bad dudes that are of artificial intelligence, and they are sucking the lifeblood of this planet and have been doing this for millennia. Wilhelm Reich estimated about 25,000 years. I think possibly a lot longer. But they have created the deserts of the Southwest. They're the ones that cut down the giant silicon trees.
Oh, wow.
But you guys know about that.
No.
Devil's Tower.
Yes, like Devil's Tower. And these are not basalt cliffs. That is a BS. That's pseudoscience. You know, they say Orgone energy is pseudoscience. Wikipedia is pseudoscience. There's so much BS on that website, like basalt cliffs. There's no way that that structure, which is a giant tree trunk stump, there's no way that that came out of the earth as magma in an upward motion, making these perfect hexagonal shapes within it, and then freezing that way. So anyway, why are they doing this? Because they benefit off of our suffering. They are feeding off of this world. Who are they? I don't know. I think I have some ideas, but I do know they are extra dimensional and that they psychically attack nice people like us all the time. I don't know if you guys have experienced the psychic attacks.
Oh, yeah.
That's so great. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's another thing I wanted to ask about that I've come across is, right, the chemtrailing, the heavy metals. One purpose, apparently, too, is to help with mind control, thought control. It acts as a conduit, just like copper conducts electricity. It gives them a base for their implants to be charged to work in mind control of the population.
Well, they put that in our bodies. They want us to be full of metals. The thing with the chemtrails to realize, though, is nowadays, in most places, they are neutralized. And I've been to places where they're not. I can show you a picture. I just was in Pittsburgh, and you cannot believe how bad it looks there. The western U.S., they are largely neutralized, so I wouldn't worry too much about that source of metal. Because, like I said, the Orgone energy is pushing them away from the earth. And you guys are living near mountains, and that area naturally cleans itself. So the water is a huge source of that you've got to still be concerned about. Our food. There are many sources of the heavy metals. Of course, vaccines, which I doubt either of you guys would do to yourself. But,
oh, no.
You know, the chemtrails used to be a major source of that in our bodies, but over time we've been neutralizing them, not just us, but others, and it is really moving away from the earth. I mean, you can see it. I have other pictures I can show, and also anyone can go to my website, thechembo.com, and see a photo gallery and then learn what they look like when they're neutralized. Your biggest enemy right now is actually your own cell phone and your own Wi-Fi. It's the things in your own pocket, in your own house, that are really the mind-controlling tools. So the metals, yes, that's a tool they use. The biggest tool they use is the energy weapon, and they use them in many forms, but the one we are seeing every single day is the cell towers in our towns, the cell phone in your pocket, your Wi-Fi. Any of that you can get rid of in your own home would make a huge difference to your consciousness, and I've seen it myself. I encourage people to ditch those devices and use them only when necessary. I mean, you have to when you're traveling, but you don't need to be glued to that phone, you know, constantly tweeting and Facebooking and all that. That's not what it's for.
Yeah, I know. Tell that to the young generation. They're so
Hey, tell that to the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Can you believe how addicted the older people are now? I mean, it's astounding.
Yeah.
Not just the young, but everyone. It's crazy.
I don't even like to hold them myself. Just the way a smartphone feels, it just radiates that heat and stuff, and it doesn't feel good. It feels like needles or something to me. So, yeah, that's good advice.
I totally get that. Yeah.
What about...
And, you know, some people are addicted to that, by the way. There is DOR addiction, and they're used to it, and they can't go without it, and if you take it away from them, they freak out. And some of those people who are DORized, totally DOR addicted, if you put Orgonite in their house, they'll freak out. But it's not necessarily them freaking out. It could be their entity attachments that are freaking out.
Yeah, their implants and stuff, right? Yeah. Their mind slides and things kicking in. What is DOR?
DOR is deadly orgone radiation that's kind of a misleading term because there really is no deadly orgone, but Wilhelm Reich termed the deadly energy as DOR, or deadly orgone radiation, otherwise orgone energy in an immobilized state. So that's what we see in our world is two things. You can look at everything kind of in a dualistic way in this world. You've got the light and the dark, the orgone and the DOR, deadly orgone radiation. So in a very simple sense, what we're trying to do is eliminate the deadly stuff, bring in the life-giving stuff. And the way you eliminate the deadly is, first off, reject it. Don't bring it into your life. Second off, where you can't reject it, neutralize it with Orgonite.
Nice.
What do you think about the people who say that one of the reasons they're using the chemtrailing is to block the energy coming from our sun, the awakening energies?
There is definitely something to that. I don't know exactly if that's what it's for, because my main thing that I have noticed with it is that it's for weather control and mind control, and it's largely a psyop. But blocking the sun totally makes sense that they would do that in order to deplete our energy, and also, again, as the psyop, they want us to be depressed. So when you're putting this nasty stuff in the sky, people are just going to be depressed. And I could show you a picture. Actually, I'd like to show you a picture of the most depressing sky I've seen recently, because I don't see depressing skies in California anymore. The other day, we had a pretty bad bombardment, but they can only keep it up here for a day or two anymore, and then it clears completely. But I was in Pittsburgh. I'm going to pull that up.
Okay.
Because I was just astounded by how bad it was. Let's see if I can find it here. Got it. Okay. Share my screen again. Okay, am I sharing?
Yes.
Yep.
Pittsburgh. All right. This was the worst sky I've seen. We used to have skies like this in California, but not in the last few years. And very, very rarely when it does happen, because we've neutralized the cell towers for, hundreds of miles. We've gone all the way from the border near Mexico all the way up to Portland, Oregon, everywhere in between. We've done Las Vegas, Nevada, and, so many places. In fact, these things that happened in Las Vegas, these terrible attacks recently, all this stuff seems to happen right after we gift. We did gifting in San Bernardino, and right after that, the San Bernardino false flag. It's like over and over again, they get so mad when you remove their DOR sources. These are all parasitic attacks. These are all parasitic entities doing this to us. Humans may act on their behalf, but the energy behind it, it's not us. So this sky in Pittsburgh was the nastiest sky I've seen in so long, and because Pittsburgh is a place without Orgonite. I mean, Gabriel's great uncle in Pittsburgh has 2 pieces of Orgonite, but that's not gridded throughout the city. We got there and we just distributed the most minute amount because we weren't in a place where we could do it because we were with the family. But let me show you what it looked like the next day. So this is when we arrived in the evening. I'm going to show you what it looked like when we woke up. Let's pull that up. Okay. The next morning we woke up to this. This is what it looks like when DOR lifts. So some people see this and they're like, oh, those are chem clouds. But what you see is a major difference from the day before. You see DOR lifting, the sky at the horizon is becoming blue. You see these little puffy clouds starting to form. And all this is just the remaining water vapor after the aerosol pollution is removed. It starts to coalesce. Now, just only maybe 20 minutes to a half hour after this was taken, this is what it looked like. So this is all from the same window. That's from arrival the evening before till the morning after. And this is just from a small amount of Orgonite tower busters and positive energy, because we knew we couldn't physically tower bust on this trip, so we mentally tower busted. So just to show you what you can do, you have it within you to use the orgone of your body, of your spirit, to cleanse the earth. You can put that out. You can put out that intention that you want to clean it up, and the Earth responds.
I like to say, let's just send their chemtrails back to them with love.
You can, because you're using love to clean it. Orgone is
Yes.
love. So
Yes.
you are using the energy of love. They hate it. So
Yes.
you love, they don't like it.
Right. It's a completely different vibration than what they want.
Exactly. So, you know, there's the science and the spirituality, and the spirituality is we can do this ourselves. We have this deep connection with the sky and with the earth. And, you know, Ken Rolla has talked about this too, which is great because he's a scientist, but he's also, you know, talked about having a prayer circle, meditation groups. You can get together with people, or you can do it alone, and you can change the sky with a thought.
Right. You know, okay, so what about, and I know Ken Rolla is really into this too, what are some of the things people can do? You know, if they're afraid, oh my gosh, I'm going to get cancer, or blah, blah, blah. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do. And the first thing right now is just listening and getting knowledge, you know. So, okay, so
Yeah.
Orgonite. Not all Orgonite is equal. I see these Etsy websites where people are selling Orgonite full of like lavender buds and little flowers and pretty little
Yeah, that's not functional.
No, and as I said, it's like, okay, more of the false light stuff.
Well, you know, and they might just be doing it as an art project, you know, and they might say that it makes you feel good and gives you good vibes or whatever. And, you know, anything can give you good vibes. But if you want the functioning free energy device, it takes specific ingredients. And actually, here's a really simple one. I have a video on how to make these. If you go to thechembo.com, you can learn how to knock off my Orgonite and make them just like this. These ones use ultrafine brass shavings. Oops, let's see, try to put in my camera there. Ultrafine brass shavings. This has rose quartz and some selenite. And it looks like I also put some little quartz nuggets in there. I can't remember, but if there's quartz in it, that's good enough. The rose quartz will do it. Sometimes I'll add some extra quartz nuggets and the copper coil. And anyone can make this. And this one's functioning. So it looks cool, but it's also functional.
Yeah.
And I make some big ones too. Again, they can be like pretty and elaborate, but the main thing you want is super fine shavings. And these iron filings are like powder. These brass filings are also extremely fine. These are less powdery, but also very, very fine, brass and aluminum. So yeah, for function, that's what you need. Simply just the shavings, the quartz crystals, and the copper coil in the resin, and you've got a very powerful energy device.
Awesome. Hey, Sharon, who makes the chemical agent that is sprayed? I mean, who is actually making this coming from Offworld? Who and where is this coming from? Because what a great cure that would be if that was to be eliminated.
Well, you can eliminate it with Orgonite. It throws it away from the earth. What is it? We don't know. We think it's aluminum, barium, and strontium. We think our government is making it. Well, I say our government. It's not my government. They don't rule me because I'm not, my business entity is not in contract with them, and that's a story for another day. But that government has nothing to do with me.
That's beautiful, yeah.
But see, that's all business, and I'm not involved with that business. And we really think, and a lot of people I respect really think that the government is very involved in the geoengineering. I do not think that they are as involved as all that. I think it's mostly extra-dimensional stuff. And what are they spraying? Like I said, we think we know what it is, but no one has proven that. You know, Dane Wigington from Geoengineering Watch and the people he works with, like there's the USDA crop loss adjuster, Rosalind Peterson, and all these people, Francis Mengels from the Forest Service. I know all these people now because for years I've been studying this. All these government people, they're talking about it. I don't believe them because they come from the government. See? Now they're saying it's these metals, and I want to believe that they know what they're talking about, but they're coming from the government, and so that's what the government wants us to know. If they are coming from that entity and saying this is what it is, that means that's what they want us to think it is. So we think it's metals. It appears to be metals. It behaves like metals in the face of the Orgone energy vortexes that we make. However, I think that element of it is overplayed. I think the amount of metal up there is far less than we think. What we see when we see chem clouds is DORized clouds. A lot of what you see up there is actually water vapor that has been bombarded with positively ionizing, deadly energy, mostly from cell towers, and that inhibits the hydrogen bonding of water molecules. So when you're putting an energy field out there, metal or no metal, the metals definitely help with that positive ionization and that pollution, but when you're bombarding the sky with this type of energy, you are inhibiting cloud formation and creating a white haze. So with or without metal, that white haze would exist. This is what the scientist James DeMaio says. Now, James DeMaio also puts out a lot of disinformation about Orgonite. He's dead set against it. So you can't take that too seriously, what he says. However, one thing where he is correct is that the clouds are DORized. Where he is incorrect is he says chemtrails don't exist. I don't agree with that. I think they do. I think they're overplayed, though. So it's so convoluted. I've been studying this for years.
Yeah, it could be a distraction or something, a chemtrailing or whatever. But I mean, there's a good chance that this is manufactured off-world. That
very good chance.
Particulates, this agent, this compound, contains compounds that are not from Earth.
I definitely think so. I used to ask, where are they getting it all from? I mean, it's endless.
Yeah.
It's an endless stream of aluminum. Where are they getting it from? But again, like I said, it's not as much as you think. It's actually metallic. That's the part that's really hard for people to grasp, because people want a physical explanation for everything. They want a 3D explanation for what they're seeing. And in a 3D explanation, you're seeing heavy metals being sprayed on us. But this is much, much more than 3D. This is higher dimensional. This is an energy battle. This is the battle of Orgone versus DOR, of humans versus artificial intelligence entities. This is huge, and this is the core of the battle going on Earth right now. It's energetic. So until people can get past the fixation on the metals and understand the energy, they're not going to be able to see clean skies. I see clean skies. And again, now here's another aspect to it, the mind. I see clean skies everywhere I go. My mind creates them. If you're creating dirty skies, you're going to see dirty skies. I want to show you a sky picture during a time period, January of 2016, when Gabriel and I almost became homeless and had a horrible time and couldn't concentrate on our energy work, just to show you the mind connection. Can I show you that sky?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
We love pictures.
Cool. So I have to share. I hope this doesn't mess up the flow too much.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
No, visual is good.
So we had been having only beautiful, perfect skies for such a long time. And then we came to this point where things were getting really bad for us where we lived. In fact, we were getting kicked out of our house for making Orgonite. And long story, nowadays I would have sued the pants off of that landlord. But now, a story for another day. I would have used my business entity to sue him. But since I didn't do that, I was very, very sad because we didn't have a place to live and we were having a hard time finding one. And we were out in the desert. We had got to the point where we were so desperate, we were looking for a house in like Palmdale or Lancaster. And this is the sky. Just terrible, polluted, depressing. And this is in the desert. And this is when I was at my lowest. So you could see how I'm doing this work, and it's not just the Orgonite doing it, but we're also putting ourselves into it and our own energy. And when my energy was drained, this was the sky. So I see this regularly, that you know, it's up to the people to do it. You know, when I leave LA for periods of time, people say, oh, it's terrible and there have been so many chemtrails. Then I go to LA and either it looks fine or there are chemtrails that clear up by the end of the day. So you got to put your own energy into it, and you can't rely on someone else to do it for you. I'd love to be everywhere all the time, cleaning the skies for everyone, but I've given you the tools to do it yourself.
You are the Sylph. That's what you are.
I am? I don't know about that.
The Sylph, the fairy, the cleanup fairy,
Well, see, if you want a cleanup fairy to do it for you, though, you're going to live with chemtrails because you got to learn to do it for yourself. Oh, and the other huge piece of advice is you really, really have to understand the mind-controlling effects of your cell phone. It's designed to keep you from being able to do this.
Yeah.
You cannot do this if you have that. And I've seen this too. I took the Wi-Fi out of our house, and we had perfect skies for 5 weeks, and this was back in 2014. We had a house guest. I put the Wi-Fi back on for the guest. I couldn't sleep all night and woke up the next morning to chemtrails again for the first time in 5 weeks. Those devices are designed to impair our higher dimensional capabilities. That's why they call it a frequency fence. People don't want to listen to me on this one. Nobody will hear me on this one, but if you take those things out of your life, you'll be amazed at how your consciousness develops.
Well, it just goes along with everything. You know, it's creating the world that you want to live in. It's working your way to the fifth dimension or ascension or whatever you want to call it. Taking responsibility for your own health versus going to the doctor for the white pills. So many people do not want to do their work, you know, and so they're gonna live in what they create. So I totally get what you talk about, what you're saying. You know, we have to use ourselves and our energy selves and make the skies beautiful. And if we're walking around with a rain cloud over our head, well, we created that.
I actually like walking around with a rain cloud over my head, but that's a lot of what we do.
Well, you, poor California. You had that drought for what was it, 3 years? Was that you and your?
Well, it was technically 5.
5.
I documented the end of that drought since 2014, and I have blog entries. If you want to just skip ahead to the best of on the blog, just go to thechembo.com and go to the Orgonite section and click on the best of blog links, because I was documenting the end of that drought for 3 years. And it finally ended officially. Finally, the governor said it was over in April of this year. And I have actually documented how that happened. Oh, are you screen sharing?
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Let me see. If I can type, I have Band-Aids.
Yeah, well, you type that. So, Sharon, you know, that's an interesting, you raised me. So is it possible that the chemtrail agent is not really just deployed or dispersed through airplanes? And this is some kind of other multidimensional technology and so the airplanes is just like a distraction or some kind of fear tactic?
It's a hologram, and actually when Denice is done screen sharing, then I'll share a few photos of the holographic nature of the crafts.
It won't come up.
Type thechembo.com.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some really interesting photos because...
Yeah, I'm going to get... No. I don't... Poor Jason quit.
That's Jason's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what do you say about that, Sharon, that maybe it isn't deployed by the planes after all?
I think that they are actually not planes. Now, not saying that there aren't planes doing weather modification. We have ample documentation of cloud seeding and those kind of things done by human beings. But I'm saying there's more to it. And I'll show you some photos after this screen share of some crafts, because what I'm noticing is that a lot of the planes that we see spraying, when you zoom in on them with a high quality zoom, and right now I've got a 40 times zoom, which is, it's better than what I used to have. I'm getting some interesting details and things that are odd and don't look like real planes. So I'll show you. Oh, we're going to the photos.
Where do you want me to go? Where do you want?
Go to the photos.
Okay.
So if you scroll down, you can see, I mean, this is something that people can explore, you know, when they want to. These are pictures of pre-Orgonite skies, essentially, like DOR, different DOR examples. And you could click on any one of the pictures and see the different examples, and I explain all of them. And if you scroll down to the next section, you'll see this is before we had any Orgonite of our own. This is a few months before we started. And this was every day in Los Angeles. And this is an example of DOR. Now, DOR is not just chemtrails. DOR is also smog. And we think that smog is just pollution from cars. But what we've learned through working with this energy is that in a DOR environment with lots of cell phone towers putting out EMF and lots of other positively ionizing technologies, you will have smog lingering. So here we see smog in a valley in the desert where there's no cities and very few cars. So you can see the smoggy skies anywhere that there's DOR. So this is something I've been teaching about, is that we're fixated on the air pollution out of cars, and we think that it's all us doing it and that we're making global warming and all of these things, when in actuality, the DOR is being held in by these positively ionizing technologies, and that's what we need to eliminate. We don't need to stop driving. We should try driving less. We should try using fuel-efficient cars and developing non-petroleum ways to get around. However, that's not what's causing the smog or the warming, by the way, which isn't really happening.
Yeah, it isn't really happening.
So,
that's my hunch. Yeah.
Well, it was. And actually, the global warming was happening for a long time, but it was due to these technologies to terraform and desertify. It wasn't because of our driving. And that's, you know, it's important to know that. If you scroll down a little, Denice, you'll see these are all examples of how Orgone energy cleans pollution, breaks chemtrails into pieces, and restores natural clouds.
Oh,
so there's a lot to explore here, but this is a good way to just get like the basics of the different cloud types. Are you drawing on there?
I'm drawing on there. What are those? That is weird.
So when the chemtrail was sprayed, there was such a high Orgone energy field that not only did it break up into pieces, but it just corkscrewed apart.
Oh, weird. That is just so bizarre.
And when you see them curving the trails, they're trying to trick the vortex because their trails aren't sticking. Their trails can't stick if we have higher Orgone energy than DOR. If it's all cell phone towers and no Orgonite, then everything they do will linger. If we have neutralized the area, then nothing they do will linger. So people are worried about HARP, and they see lines in the clouds. There's some examples here of the clouds breaking free of HARP, which is just really the cell phone towers doing it. It's not so much HARP doing it.
Oh, gosh.
There's a lot to explore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you go to the Orgonite section of the site, you'll see all of the most significant giftings we've done. And if you scroll down, so I have a big description here about how it works. And then if you keep going, there's, links from somewhere under the Chembo. All of these things are the different places we've gifted. And you can see there are many.
Boulder.
Yep, I did a little in Boulder. It was unbelievable. Do you want to look at that?
Sure.
Extreme scalar wave vortex in Boulder. Oh.
Okay, right down here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I went there to be on Gaia. It was called Gaiam TV back then.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you could see unbelievable things happening. That top photo there with that explosive energy, what's happening is all of the geoengineering pollution is being thrown out into space so rapidly, and emerging from it are natural water vapor clouds. Because when you remove the particulate pollution, then you will see natural clouds form. So I acknowledge that there is particulate pollution in the mix, but as I was saying, it's overplayed and it's not falling on us, at least not in the West. This was 2 years ago.
When you talk about particulate pollution, can you share about nano?
Yes, that's what we believe it is. We believe that it to be nanoparticulate aluminum, barium, and strontium. Again, I don't have any proof that it is those things, and I don't really necessarily believe what a government scientist says it is. However, there is evidence that there is nanoparticulate matter in there, but I mean, like I said, I don't know how much. There's no way to prove it.
But what do you know about intelligent nano? You know what I mean? Where that's
I know.
It's actually like weaponized or artificial intelligence.
Right. Well, while I have heard about that, I'm not an expert on it, and I think that this is only an opinion since I'm not an expert on nanotechnology, but I think it's a distraction from the actual thing that's controlling our minds and bodies, which is electromagnetic fields. I think the nanotechnology is a distraction because we are easily controlled without any metals at all. So people do fixate on the particulates that are in our bodies, but what I've learned is a lot of the health problems I had that I thought were because of metals were actually because of electromagnetic fields. So that isn't to say that we don't have metals in our bodies, but I think that when they say we're being controlled by nanotechnology, we're being controlled by electromagnetic fields because we are multidimensional organisms. Mm-hmm. That's what we don't understand about ourselves is we operate on higher levels in the 3D. So while there may be nanotechnology that's in our bodies, for the most part, I have seen that the EMF from the cell phones can be programmed, from the cell towers, from the Wi-Fi, it can be programmed to make us do what it wants. So we don't even need the nanobots is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, that's great. I was coming across that same stuff, electromagnetic. Almost everything is electromagnetic. The Earth is polar, positive, negative, magnetic electricity. And, right, so they can scramble that. And, that goes back into the implants and to mind control and distraction and, that whole ball of wax.
Absolutely, and they can do it without implants. I mean, I think some of us have implants, some of us have entity attachments. There's all kinds of stuff going on, but they can do plenty to us without any of that. They can do it all energetically. So that's why I tell people, if you really want to be free of this, you need to take control and be a big boy or girl and get rid of that phone because you have no idea what it's doing to your mind. Right. But nobody wants to hear this, so I try, but it's very hard for people. They're so used to it.
Yeah. And they want what they want, I
know.
The fast food, they want the fast food and
I know. The food is a big problem. The food is a huge problem.
Right.
I mean, I don't even think we need to necessarily get into it because everybody already knows what a problem it is, but I just traveled to the East Coast and was there for like a week, and there's not a healthy speck of food out there. I mean, I managed. I found a few, vegetarian options, and I'm looking for non-GMO though. That's the huge one. That's hard out there. Yeah. They use GMO oil for everything in a restaurant. Canola, corn, soy.
I think GMO is created somehow. It ties into all this. It's part of the same technology. It's part of the same energetic weaponry. And speaking of that, what do you know about 5G then?
5G that's the big one right now. People are really worried about it. And, it's definitely much more invasive because they're putting it closer to people's houses. But the thing with the 5G that I try to remind people so they're not scared, 5G is shorter range. So if you reject the 5G and you don't bring that 5G modem into your house, because right now it's in the pre-5G stages and it's being used right now for internet service, don't do it because they're even talking about I was listening to the guys who are actually working for the telecommunications companies and what they have to say about it. It's hard for them to bring it into the houses. It actually is like you have to have the window facing the right way. Keep it out of your house by not bringing it in because the modems for the 5G are designed to become transmitters themselves. So once you bring it in, then it's transmitting throughout the house. So the thing with 5G is to reject it. Don't use it. And that's the biggest step you can take to staying healthy. And as far as if you're using a phone that's going to be on that 5G network, again, it comes back to don't use it. Get a landline, a corded landline like I have. I use the cell phone only when I absolutely have to. But see, it's up to us to reject 5G. And then there's this whole other thing, which is another story for another day, which is once we all learn who we are and register our legal names as business entities as required by law, we can use those business entities to sue the CEOs of telecommunication companies and force them to remove the towers. So
yes, well,
that's a whole other...
That was the next stream of thought I was having about this. How do we get to where it's no longer manufactured? How do we get to where they're no longer building the towers or putting this poison out? I mean, and that's by not complying anymore, learning about the legal name fraud, the whole Babylonian business model. That's just, I just love hearing you say that.
Well, yeah, and we can talk about that on another show because that's a whole other topic. But okay, I would love to talk about it. But see, the thing is, we've also been taught that wrong. So most of what's out there on that is going to get you thrown in jail. So you got to know how to do it legally. But yes, the first step is if we are using the products, then we are enabling the 5G. So when is it going to stop? When are they going to stop putting this stuff out there? When people say, I don't want it anymore. But so far they want it. So it's not going to happen. It's going to take a while.
It's like that choice, you know, we all get back to, well, you have to make a choice. What is your choice? Do you want to live with it and then you live with the chemtrails, or do you want to live without it and, you know, envision and create beautiful skies? It's like we're living in the 3D and the 5D at the same time, you know, we're just kind of overlapping each other.
Yeah, we're on the fence. And it's hard to go all the way with it. Most people want to stay. And the thing with the chemtrails, you know, we are creating that. We are creating those chemtrails. When we have technologies in our home that are positively ionizing and put out DOR into our own home, we're part of the problem. And that's what people don't understand. They think, oh, we're making smog, we're making global warming, we need to curb our emissions. What you need to curb is your EMF emissions. That's the real problem. We are creating a polluted world because we have an addiction. So that's what needs to be changed.
Well, it's even in our cars. I mean, with Sirius and our computers, it's even in our cars.
Yeah. I know. It's everywhere, and you can't get away from it. I mean, you have to really try hard to get away from it. Like, I got my 40 times zoom camera to take UFO pictures, and I couldn't find one that didn't have Wi-Fi. And I was like, I'm not going to get a Wi-Fi camera. No way. So I had to go online and find an old model.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, but people can't choose to not do it if they're unaware that there's a problem with it. You know, so that
I know
it's such a great first step, and I commend you for all your efforts in raising awareness. You know, it's like you can't consent to what is not revealed or disclosed. It's kind of that thing.
Right.
You know, people, they don't know that this is a problem. They think it's great because they get their information from the mainstream media or the commercials, the Apple commercials, and how great all this technology is. They don't have the other side of the story. So I commend you for sharing that and voicing that.
Well, thanks. Well, you know, people are more aware than you might think. They just don't want to do anything, you know. And yes, I agree that there's a lot that just don't know. But I was very pleasantly surprised to see on a Yahoo News article about Verizon and AT&T teaming up to put in more cell towers, that this one commenter on the article said, oh, put one on my property. I'm tired of having bad reception in my house. And I was like, oh my goodness, this person does not know what's going on. You wouldn't believe it. There was a dozen comments after that saying, well, you'll get cancer then. Or, you know, then get a landline. I was actually kind of amazed. So maybe awareness is starting.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Well, do you see any change for the better?
Yeah. all the time. It doesn't feel that way. It feels just so heavy right now. I mean, it is heavy, but I do see a change for the better. I see awareness growing, and one of the reasons we gift Orgonite, it's not just to clean the skies, but to clean up those the EMF pollution from neighborhoods, because it raises the consciousness of everyone who lives in the neighborhood. So when you gift Orgonite, you're actually spreading the gift of consciousness. So that's one way that we can help expedite that. And through teaching, you know, education, spreading the word, that's another way. But I think that there is definitely something going on where more and more people are fed up with the BS. And I get this because I have a Yahoo Mail account that I log into, so I see the Yahoo News. And sometimes I'll go straight to the comments because it's amusing when there's an article on global warming. Every comment on it says that it's, you know, total BS. And it's very encouraging to see people starting to wake up a little bit to that lie. There's many more lies that we need to wake up to, but I see that humankind has been pushed too far. And there comes a point where it's just too much.
And too far. That's right.
Something breaks, you know. For a lot of people, it was 9/11. That was a big turning point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, it's almost like we have to go through the dark night of the soul before we come out on the other end. You know, if you gain the light, then you have to work a little bit more in the dark. You know, there's always this balance. So it just seems like a lot of people are going through that right now. And I see it.
Definitely. And I wanted to show you guys a few photos before I forget, because
sure.
we need to remember that we're in an energetic war, and people tend to put the blame on other people a lot, and we're always trying to scapegoat some group of people. There's a lot of racism going on right now. There's actually nationalism and all kinds of terrible things going on because people are scapegoating other people. And that's a lie, and that's a lie we need to, we just need to get over that one, because we are all the same, and we're being attacked by something off of this world. And a lot of the leadership that we call leadership, you know, the people who run the companies that they call countries, they're completely DORIs, they're completely possessed, parasitically infected, if not, you know, ETs themselves. So I actually look at the film They Live as a documentary. So anyway, I just wanted to show you guys a few pictures just to put in perspective what you're talking about, that these are ETs doing this, the holographic nature of what's going on here. I'm going to show you first. We just need to understand we're being completely manipulated, and this is a big psyop to make us feel powerless. Chemtrails are a huge psyop to put something huge over our heads, to put something insurmountable in the sky that we look at and think there's nothing we can do. This is so much bigger than me. It isn't. It's fake. It's so fake. Let me show you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. This is from Contact in the Desert. This plane flew overhead, and Gabriel noticed it and called me over, and I was so happy to get a picture of this. This plane is completely see-through in the middle. It's a chemtrail sprayer that's completely see-through in the middle. We have to look at things like this with a discerning mind. We can't just say like, oh, it must have been, I must have messed up with the camera. This was really low flying. It was really easy to get. I had a steady hand. And we really have to start like thinking, you know, what is it that I'm seeing here?
Yeah.
You know, are we just going to piece it together with our minds and see a plane? Or are we going to see that this isn't a plane? Right. At least not as we know it.
Boy, is that bad? That's bad camouflage on their part.
I have more. I've got more just to show you a few.
It's interesting you can see the silhouette of the fuselage.
It is. It's strange. They do a lot of this. And let's see. This one just flew over my house yesterday. Now, this one says Alaska on it. This plane flew in a direction I've never seen a plane fly over our house in almost 2 years here. It flew from northwest to southeast, and it was like almost like from due north to due south. I've never seen it quite like that. And now this one was crystal clear. I got even the Alaska logo on it. So I'm showing you, I got a steady hand on these things. but it's strangely iridescent.
Yes.
But this isn't even as weird as they get.
Yeah.
I mean, this one's weird. But here's one. Let me show you one. Just like that. Let's see.
It almost looks organic.
It looks to me like, let's see, I'm not seeing it in here. I tried to pull up a few to make them easy to get to for you guys, but I don't see everything in here right now. Oh, here it is. This one here was back in June. This is a similar kind of plane. What is it that we're looking at? You know, you got to start thinking about it. There's a third trail. It's kind of hard to see. There's a third trail coming out of the middle here. And all these are on my blog too. I keep track of all these. Now you might just say, oh, it's just the sunlight hitting it in a peculiar way, but I just wanted to show it to you guys.
Yeah.
Because it gets kind of like bizarre after a while. This is one where the plane and the chemtrail look the same. I'm going to zoom in on a little. Do you guys see how?
Yes.
Whatever they use to make an image of a plane here is the same thing making the trail. And so you've got to ask yourself, what is this?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
To me,
they want us to think it's a plane.
They want us to think it's a plane. Yes. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that because it's a major psyop on us that these things are flying over our houses. This was dead silent.
Ooh.
This was so low. Look how crisp this photo is.
Yeah.
I think it's another Alaska or mimicking Alaska. It was so low flying. Why didn't it make a sound?
Right.
That's what I ask myself. They're silent. So get what you want from that, and you don't have to believe me that it's a hologram. But this chemtrail thing, major psyop. I studied it for years. I used to be so scared of them. I lived my life in fear every day when I'd see them spraying. And when I learned about Orgonite and tried it out, I was very skeptical, but I tried it out. And the results were so amazing that we just kept moving forward. Gabe and I we've made thousands and thousands of them by now. I'm estimating at least 10,000. And the results have been so amazing to us, to see the skies cleaning, to see the air clearing, people becoming friendlier, more relaxed, happier in communities everywhere we go. And we've seen the same thing over and over and over again. Las Vegas, Portland, Oregon, throughout California, north to south, everywhere. So I'm just working on it, just continuing to work. But we have to understand that if something this small and this simple can knock chemtrails out of the sky, how powerful are those chemtrails really?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
What are they really? Yeah.
we got the season of giving, so everybody give Orgonite this
Yeah.
season.
Well, speaking of that, you do have those for purchase, right, Sharon, on your website?
Yes, you can go to thechembo.com and click on our link to our Etsy store where we sell Orgonite. And these tower busters are really cheap, and we sell them with bulk discounts for gifters. So you'll see them there. And also, if you want to make your own, go to thechembo.com and click on Orgonite, and you'll see an instructional video on how to make these. I do this one first because it uses a low fume crafting resin, so anybody can feel comfortable doing this and not worry about your health, because resin can be a little noxious.
Have you ever used, like, beeswax or anything like that?
Beeswax does not have the properties necessary to activate the piezoelectric properties of quartz. So while you can make a nice sculpture with it and have a subtle energetic effect, you're not going to be able to do like major sky cleaning and neutralizing cell towers with that. So beeswax, a lot of people do that, but it's not effective for, you know, the POW that you get with this.
It doesn't conduct.
Well, you want a non-conductive medium. So beeswax is non-conductive, but so is the resin. But the difference is the resin catalyzes, so it compresses on the materials. So you want that compression.
Yeah, it kind of shrinks up, I see.
That activates the piezoelectric properties of the quartz. There's a really good article about this on Organize Africa, George Ritchell's website. He gifted Africa. He's gifted like 25,000 tower busters since 2002 in Africa and has had amazing results. And you can go to his website. It's kind of hard to find it, but you go to the blog and he talks about alternative materials to resin. And he shows the Carillion photographs of the, I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's Carillion.
Yeah.
But there's different photographs of the energy signatures of Orgonite made with different metals, and one made with beeswax or I think plaster. And you could see the energy signature of the one made with the non-resin material being much smaller. But all the ones with the different metals are comparable. And he's saying with this, all these different metals are fine, because some people say don't use aluminum. Some people say don't use iron. But what we have found and what he has found is that all of these metals are effective, but they must be used with a polyester resin.
And that resin would probably weather better too.
Mm-hmm.
As far as
yeah,
like
you know, they're
dissolving out in the elements and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they're designed to last.
Mm-hmm. Denice?
You know, what about pyramids? I know Ken Rolla talks a lot about pyramids. What if you did a pyramid with the Orgonite?
You mean a pyramid like this, or a pyramid of?
He does the big wooden pyramids, and
oh yeah,
you know,
well, pyramids are natural conductors of scalar waves or orgone energy out of the tip. So it's just the shape alone is, you know, produces the spiraling wave out of the top. But you know, with these materials in it, then you've got a really powerful orgone energy device, because you've got both the right materials and this shape. However, this shape works fine too because you have the right materials. But yeah, the pyramid, it helps it.
Okay.
You know, makes it even stronger.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So what is the one thing that you would really like to hit home on, the one thing that people really need to take away from today's discussion?
Well, I just think that everybody should stop being afraid. That's what I want. I want to see an end to the fear and a beginning to actually taking back our power and doing the work. So I hope that people are less afraid of chemtrails. I mean, I didn't really even talk too much about chemtrails, but it could take hours to talk about every aspect to this work. But I hope that everybody understands the chemtrails are overplayed. A lot more of it is energetic than physical. And so to worry so much about heavy metals is counterproductive. What we need to do is clean them out of the atmosphere, knock them out with Orgonite, and also clean up your home, get Orgonite in your house, and get rid of the offending devices. So just don't participate in that energy war on the bad side. You know, just get with the program and clean up your own energy field.
Beautiful. Well, hey, got to get you back and talk about state of affairs with the business personhood. I'd love to get your takes on all that, man.
I would love to talk about it.
Yeah.
Ever since I registered, I have become a free living woman.
With a UCC1 filing? Is that what you mean, registered?
Nope. No, the UCC is a trap. That'll get you all confused. I learned that what you need to do, and this is the law, if you want to conduct business for a profit in this state, meaning in the United States, you must operate under an assumed name. That assumed name, for me, is the name that was issued to me by the state of New York when I was born, and that name is Sharon Daphna Schloss. But that's not my name. That's my business.
It's a legal name.
So
legal name.
That's my, and that is now registered properly as a business entity. And so that's the name that I use in commerce, but I am in no way involved in commerce. I'm Sharon Daphna, a living woman.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's important. Fantastic, powerful information that needs to get out there more. I mean, that's a cornerstone to solving a lot of this stuff, in my opinion.
Absolutely. To me, the two things we need are Orgone energy and the legal name registration. Once we've done those things, we've got it. We got this. See?
Yeah.
Everything's already been done. It's already cleaned up. This is already our world. It's been done. We just need to get there because we're in the 3D. We haven't got to 4D yet.
Right. We're still here. So, all right. Beautiful. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you about that. That's tremendous information. Maybe get a step-by-step guide to help people know how to do that. And
I will love to explain it.
Let's do it. Awesome.
Cool.
Sharon, thank you.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you, Denice.